I'm joined by Curtin University's inaugural Dean of Global Futures, Joe Siracusa. Joe, appreciate your time again today. Big news with the White House sending US-made F-16 fighter jets to help Ukraine. What do you think will happen next?
Yes, Sam, it is very, very big news. Look, the reason that Putin has been threatening the West with tactical nuclear weapons, which, by the way, it's a war that can be fought, can be won. It's not strategic nuclear weapons, is to keep these fighter jets away. That is, advanced weapon system on the border of Ukraine, which is only about 400 kilometers to the Kremlin. So he's made this very clear that he won't tolerate this in the same way the Americans wouldn't tolerate F-16s in Puerto Rico or on or in Niagara or on the Rio Grande border. I mean, this is just too close. It tips the balance of terror and the balance of what we call the balance of nuclear terror. And so I think we're in for a little bit of a sled here, Sam. It's quite clear that Putin won't tolerate this, and it's quite clear the Americans have pushed the boundary. Now, President Biden is trying very hard to sink in with the Europeans, who are frankly on the warpath. I've just come from one of their conferences in Europe, and there isn't anyone there looking for a diplomatic solution. So President Biden, who's tying up the events in Ukraine with his own 2024 election, has rolled the dice on this one. Now, I have learned in my short time in Europe from people who know these things that the Americans have threatened the Russians or Putin that if he uses tactical nuclear weapons, America, according to the Pentagon people that I know, will have already told the Kremlin that they will attack Crimea and the Black Sea Fleet with massive conventional power. Now, where does that leave us? Well, that leaves us at the doorstep of World War III. So this has been escalating, and I think President Biden has stepped over the red line here, which has been very clear since last year, and he knows that. And I think the reason he's going home is not for the budget. I mean, the budget's going to figure itself out. These guys aren't stupid. He's going home to deal with the blowback that this is going to come. I think President Putin is going to have to do something here. He's made it very clear. He's got tactical nuclear weapons in Belarus and other places. And I want your audience to keep in mind that during the height of the Cuban Missile Crisis, we did not know, President Kennedy did not know, that there were 21 tactical nuclear weapons in Cuba, and that they were all used, or they all had permission. The theater commanders all had permission to use them without making a phone call to the Kremlin. So, this is a very dangerous situation. And there's a good reason, Sam, why we are 90 seconds to midnight on the doomsday clock.
You make a very good point there, Joe Siracusa. Look, the other big news, of course, from the sidelines of the G7 summit is that President Biden apologised to our Prime Minister for pulling out of his Australian trip. What do you make of this?
Well, Biden's my 14th president and probably my 10th president since I've been in Australia since the 70s. I think Australia could probably do without his visit. I mean, some of these visits become very just formalistic. I mean, if you got important things to do at home, the visits are planned way in advance. And I understand the president's helicopter is already in Australia. It's a bigger blow to smaller places like New Guinea, which we're counting on having a president for the first time. That would have been a big deal there. But I don't think Australians are going to miss much on this one. I remember President George W. Bush came here and the others, and it made a pretty big splash because they don't come very often. And of course, Albanese got what he wanted. He got state dinners. Everyone wants to go to the White House and have a great meal. And I'll tell you a quick story, Sam. When George W. Bush was in the air coming to Australia, some guy I knew in Japan, I used to play tennis with in Boston, called me up and wanted to know if I would be a stand-in for President Bush at the Canberra airport, because they always use stand-ins in case there's an assassination attempt. I looked a little bit like Bush. We have the same birthday and all the rest of it. And he remembered, he kept saying, "You look like President Bush." So anyway, he asked me at the last minute if I would stand in for President Bush, and I said, no, I don't think that's going to work out very well. So I wonder who the stand-in in this country was picked out to stand in for President Biden. That would be a pretty good guess, huh?
You've given me a new story to work on this week, Joel. I'll have to find that out. Now, look, Meghan and Harry back making global headlines this week. Before I let you go, I need to talk to you about this near catastrophic New York City car chase. What do you think of it?
Well, Sam, I lived in New York for about a year before I came to Australia. I don't know where
Hmm.
you could have a 20-minute or 2-hour chase without running up a $500 taxi bill. And look, these are kind of fun people for America. America doesn't have royalty. All we have is Hollywood. And
Yes.
so these guys, they become sort of the butt of jokes in America. I mean, where would nighttime television be without them? But you think these people who are so self-important and all the rest of it, they would have a country car or a hired car or a limo for the night? Why jump in a damn taxi if you're trying to dodge the paparazzi? Look, I'm sure they were scared to death. And I'm sure nothing came of it. I mean, nothing was going to come of it. But, Page Six in America, that is the Scandal News, loves this kind of stuff. And, we just can't get enough of this. When I was a kid, Sam, it was Princess Anne and her affairs with Lord Snowden and the rest of them. I mean, Americans love to gobble this stuff up. They don't take it too seriously, but I'll tell you what, it's an awful lot of fun.
It certainly is, Joe. And look, the subway works pretty well in New York. I've been on it before. I appreciate your time once again today. Thanks, Joe Siracusa.
Hey, thank you.